Today in my studio is Bonnie Alexander. Bonnie, would you introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
Thanks, Julia. I'm Bonnie. I work for the Victoria School District as a career education coordinator, and I create resources for students and teachers. And I love training teachers and working with parents, anybody that's interested in working with young people and kind of broadening their aspirations.
Thanks, Bonnie. Is it a typical kind of teacher position in British Columbia, or is this something unique that's unique to your school district?
Yeah, it is very unique here in British Columbia and other parts really of the world to have somebody like myself focused on elementary and middle school career education is something that's quite unique. Research shows that it can be very effective and a wonderful way to get students in the right mindset before they go to high school and after high school. So yeah, it's important work. And I like to share what I do with others because they may not have people like me in their parts of the world.
Well, this sounds very exciting. Could you tell us what kind of background and education you need to do this sort of work?
Yeah, my career pathway was really windy, as most of us are. I had worked in a lot of businesses. I'd owned businesses. I owned a cafe. I worked in an art gallery, had my own interior design business, which led me eventually to wanting to kind of really change my career path to something where I was serving young people, which is actually from a very young age, I did actually really want to get into that field. I trained as an art and English teacher, and then I fell into a career education job by chance and kind of fell head over heels in love with the work. I got to work with students one-on-one in a secondary school, and then eventually my district had a job posting for career education in K to 9, and I was pretty thrilled at the idea of working with students earlier so that I could, again, get them kind of in the right mindset, setting the stage for them to meet others in high school to prepare them for their transitions after school.
Could you tell my audience a little bit more what is career education? Because I think some people may not even realize what that is. And I imagine that some school districts, some countries may not even have that sort of phenomena in their country.
Yeah, there are a lot of misconceptions about what career education is and should be. What we know from research and data that just exposing young people to people who do different careers, so a broad range of people with different backgrounds and abilities and diverse abilities, helps them start to understand what the work world actually looks like. We want them to be brave. We want them to ask good questions. It's really about them exploring the world of work by bringing community in and for them to start thinking about their strengths and the things they really care about.
So, Bonnie, a lot of people are probably wondering, what does your day to day look like? What do you do? What does it mean to be a career educator for such young people?
Yeah, I think I see my job as a way to bring experiences to classrooms. So not only experiences for students to learn, but for as much for educators in the building to learn. Often teachers, live in an educator's bubble. Their friends are educators. Their life has been about being an educator. So them learning about people who do different jobs and kind of starting to use the correct language, really trying to address those misconceptions around what a work and a journey, education and career journey could look like is really important. So I do a lot of teacher training. I develop career resources that I bring in, again, to have students start understanding who they are, not what they want to do when they grow up. We really don't want to kind of head in that direction because we know that students are going to change their jobs, maybe as much as 7 to 10 different times through their lifetime. This younger generation is walking into a really different work environment than we were. It's going to be a lot more skill based. They're going to have to be able to advocate for themselves, understand themselves and what they have to offer. And I really want them in middle school to start thinking about their values. What do they really care about? What problem do they want to solve? And we've got lots of authors and people out there that are inspiring us with this idea of purpose. So that is a big part of what I do day to day, try to bring resources and events to schools so that we can kind of start to address these philosophies, really.
I really love what you're saying, Bonnie, because I feel like people start losing themselves a little bit once they get into the high school. They're so influenced by, peers and what's going around them. So digging into those values early on will help them stay on track. As someone who has made quite a few mistakes in her career, I really value what you're doing, and it'll help students make better career choices as they grow older.
And I think letting people know, like myself, I've had many, many careers over my lifetime. Back in the day, that was seen as something negative and someone who was lost. That expression, those who wander aren't lost. Some of us are curious. We want to try new things. And I want students to know that finding something you don't like is as important as finding something you do like. So I really have them pay attention to those things rather than seen as a negative or failure, as a interesting thing they're discovering about themselves.
So important. Bonnie, could you give us a little bit of a highlight of what career education in schools in British Columbia looks like? Do you think we do enough to help support young people in making career decisions and doing the things that they enjoy doing?
I think we do an incredible job here in British Columbia. We have some very collaborative relationships between the different career education teams across the province. The Career Education Society of BC is very much part of that collaboration and bringing us together as professionals to increase, and to improve our practice and for us to ensure we're, looking at different career pathways. We're looking through the equity piece. We're looking at our biases together, trying to be better professionals. We have an incredible dual credit program here in British Columbia where we have students laddering into transitioning into post-secondary programs, whether that's trades or vocational programs, university transfer, health programs while they're still in high school. And those are programs and courses that are fully funded. So we literally have careers teams in each school working to help find these students and then move them to post-secondary as early as we can. So it has an incredible effect on our students and transition rates.
I get a chance to experience the transition myself. A quick disclaimer, my 9 to 5, my regular job is with the youth in trades programs in British Columbia. This channel is my product of passion. This is something I do on the side and it's not related to what I do. But Bonnie and I, we have been working together, somewhat together, to provide students opportunity to go into skilled trades while they're still in high school and get that dual credit. But there's just so much more to career education in high school than skilled trades, although skilled trades, very important, and I'm biased. Bonnie, it seems like such an important work. What kind of education, training does it take for a person to become a career counselor or guide or career counselor in high school or in earlier grades?
Well, there isn't actually kind of a straight road or linear way to get to become a career educator here in British Columbia. So many of us have upskilled and we've done a lot of professional development around this area. I tend to find people that are, it really attracts positive, optimists and people who love working one-on-one with students. So this focus on personalized learning and really trying to bring that to life as much as possible. I have in my district career center coordinators that are in every one of our secondary schools. It's a career center that's open every day, all day, with a dedicated person. Some of them have been in the job as long as 15, 16 years. So they know how to build relationships and rapport. They know the people in their community and they're connected with people like skills trades to ensure that we are advocating for our students and not missing any opportunities. That's kind of some of the ways that we are led to this career path.
Yeah, I feel like you need the heart, the
Absolutely.
special kind of heart to be in this position.
Yeah.
Bonnie, you have traveled around the world and you have seen schools across the world. Do you feel like some schools do this better than us? Or do you feel like there are pieces in our career education in British Columbia that could be really beneficial to their educational system? So give us a bit of a comparison and maybe some insights on, hey, what's going on in career education around the world?
Yeah. So a number of years ago, I went to Finland and Denmark to take a look at their career education pathways and to understand their teacher training. So the kind of philosophies behind transitions for students after high school and earlier, hopefully. And what I learned is that we're doing a lot of what is going on in these types of, countries that are really ahead of the game. What I loved about those countries was the respect for educators, the respect for career education as a pathway and something that you're trained to do, and that is professional development behind that. So for me, that was an incredible experience, but also reassuring that we have some incredible things going on here in British Columbia that a lot of people don't know about. Yeah, and I've contacts people in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, and we all have certain nuggets that are working really well. But I think, like you say, that heart work, when you meet and you talk to people in different parts of the world, it's that heart and really wanting to improve the lives of all of our students, especially those that are vulnerable in our communities. So I've learned a lot by traveling, but I've also learned that it's important to celebrate what's going on here in BC that's really working well.
Bonnie, I do want to talk a little bit about your day to day, and could you maybe break it down to sort of what kind of components you bring to work? Career education, is it personal testing? Is it reading? Is it gaming? Like, how do you engage with students as well as how do you train the teachers to be good career educators?
I think what's most important after kind of doing this as long as I have is the mindset is everything. If you have the mindset that exploration is really important, that meeting people who do different jobs, so networking, asking good questions, that is going to allow you to see a world you wouldn't have been able to see before. So again, connection to the community, connection to the labor market, what jobs are up and coming.
And so
Okay.
when you bring people from the communities and you're looking at the labor market, like what kind of people are you bringing into the classroom? What kind of professions you're putting in front of the students?
Yeah, so here in British Columbia, technology, health, trades, we've got some areas we know need more people to move towards. So, what I found in my research with elementary school students, especially, is that they don't understand those jobs. They don't understand what they are. They don't understand what those people do. So, I do target certain areas when I bring guests into schools and I invite people to guest my job events. We're pretty purposeful who we bring. We also want to make sure we're dispelling any gender myths as well around jobs, whether it's bringing a male nurse into an event or a female sheet metal worker. So we've done some events where we really want students to kind of think anything's possible if that's something you're motivated to do and you want to learn to do. So we just want their minds to be open to possibilities.
I love this so much because when I was growing up, and mind you, that was, Eastern Europe, and quite a few years ago, women were meant to be teacher and nurse, and all the guys wanted to go into automotive or, male dominant professions. So I love seeing the changes in the professional world. And I love that you're bringing that inspiration and that reality check to the classrooms. And I feel like it's important for both boys and girls to understand that, hey, the limits are built by society.
Yeah. And young kids, when I meet them and do events, they don't have the same biases actually that a lot of us grow into and learn to accept. When I ask, groups of students who thinks they'll do one job for life, very few of them put their hands up. The lessons that they do before our events are as important as the events. So we want them coming with an open mind. We ask them whether they think boys and girls can do the same job. And what I'm seeing is really positive. I think this younger generation is growing up in a very different time than we did, Julia, which, I couldn't take woodworking class. I was told I couldn't. I worked at a bike shop. I was told I had to be on the shop floor selling bikes. I wasn't allowed to fix bikes and I wanted to fix bikes. So we grew up in a time where we were trying to stretch and do the things we really wanted to do, but we're being barriered. I feel very hopeful for this next generation. I really feel that they're walking into a more kind of equitable, they just work much more collaboratively with each other. Gender doesn't seem to be as much of a hang up for them. So that makes me really excited about the work we're doing.
And we need to see more and more of this in classrooms. So thank you for all the work that you do, Bonnie. If there is a school or a teacher who would like to bring some of the career education into their classroom so early on, what would you recommend? How can they set it up? What would be the first steps for someone eager to just get started?
So one of the things I have teachers start quite early in the school year is to create a chart with different career categories. So a builder, problem solver, organizer, creative. There's 6 categories. And I want students to understand that your certain strengths and talents can lead you to a lot of different types of jobs. So if this graphic is in the classroom, every time that class goes out for a field trip or a parent comes in and talks a little bit about their job, I want them to start to build categories for those jobs. Someone comes in the trades and talks to the students. They finally learn, what's an electrician actually do? What's a day in the life of an electrician? I like them to look at this board and start thinking about what strengths that person has to bring to that job. Obviously, builder is one of them, but electrician needs to be a problem solver. So we'll kind of look at 2 categories. Often we have we're a wide range of categories, things that we have strengths in, but there tends to be one or two that are really the biggest kind of main strengths. And to be building this list over a whole school year, by the time that those students leave that classroom, they could know about dozens of jobs they would have never heard of or never understood what those strengths mean. By middle school, I want them to start to identify their own strengths. So they understand that you can be a creative, but you can work in so many different fields as a creative. And I tell them a story that I started as going to interior design school. I'm creative. I enjoy speaking to people and communicating. I use those strengths throughout my career, but kind of wasn't able to find the right fit. Getting into teaching and then this career education job, I'm creative every day, creating resources, and I'm a communicator. I love working with people from around the world, teachers, educators. So I always say I'm using my strengths and skills. I just chose a different job, one that aligns with my values, and my values around serving others and working with students. I wasn't being satisfied as an interior designer. I kept coming home feeling like something was missing. So now I come home feeling really satisfied that I'm using my strengths for something I care about. I'm solving a problem, right? So I think that's my hope for K to 12, is for them to have that full arc of experience, of exposure, them really being reflective, understanding strengths, and then moving towards what do they care about? What area do they want to start, researching and becoming more engaged with when they transition after school?
This is so powerful. I wish I had a Bonnie in my school when I was in school. My career journey was a little rough, but hey, I value those lessons nevertheless. It took me just a little bit longer to figure it out that, hey, you know what? You can use your strength in many different pockets. It doesn't have to be a specific career. Bonnie, what kind of tools school districts and specifically your school maybe utilizes when it comes to supporting students who do realize, hey, I'm strong in these sort of skills? Do you have any technology? What are the next steps for someone who's a little more aware of what they want to do?
Yeah. So there are, the idea of capstones, the idea of having students document having a bit of a narrative around who they are and, the type of pathways they're kind of leaning towards. When I worked with secondary students, I want them out in the field. I want them shadowing someone. I want them to spend a day here, spend a day there. Technology is good, but I think getting out, networking and meeting people is more important even than, connecting to something on a computer. So mentoring students to do that. What does it look like to talk to someone actually on the phone? What does it look like to research different organizations that do work they care about? How do you take that to the next step? So I think in this day and age, mentoring that social component of a job and an education pathway is the most important work we're doing today, is one-on-one, personalized, getting them prepared for their own personal journey. So yeah, I see that as really the foundation of what we do.
So you also need to be a networker in this sort of role. So how do you network? Where do you find the people that will be interested in, taking the time out of their day and coming and talking to students and maybe inviting them for a site visit? Is it a team effort? Let us know, how does it work, at least in your school?
I'm the person asking pretty much anyone I meet what they do for a living. I'm always canvassing people. We had a bit of an emergency at an event. We had an ambulance driver come and he had a few minutes and I was talking to him about what it was like working in our city and, a million questions. So career educators tend to be extremely curious. We like to ask everybody what they do and why they do it. What was their pathway? What are the challenges? And yeah, I work with an amazing team in Victoria School District, a team of networkers. That's a big part of our job, is being in community, attending networking events, bringing kids to different events, whether it's a technology, like a cybersecurity event. We brought a group of students and the students are learning as much as we are. We really see those as essential Pro D for ourselves. We had a future injustice event and we brought all our career center coordinators came. They were as interested in meeting, judges, lawyers, justices, probation officers. And so I always say to educators, it's really important to get out and into different work environments. I know it's good to read a profile, but it's more important to walk into these job places. And whether or not you're bringing a group of students or not, you're bringing that knowledge back with you. You're bringing the confidence to be able to answer questions that you wouldn't have been able to answer before that visit. So I think that's really powerful.
So fun. I wish I were a student in your school district.
Yeah, there's a lot of amazing opportunities right now. I'm bringing grade nines to a health exploratory day in a couple weeks, and I had just this amazing response by grade nines that want to look into health careers. So I'm excited by that. I'm excited they're thinking about different careers and that they're willing to give up a Pro D day to come and, look at health careers up at Camosun College. So yeah, it's exciting.
When it comes to career, you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely. Kids can't be what they can't see.
The work that you do, it is so important because when they see it, it's a completely different feeling compared to, hey, I'm going to read a career profile on Wikipedia or, some dry website. I feel like that is a different kind of interaction that will bring layers and layers of understanding to the career path and possible fit.
Yeah, it's almost like that work is really good kind of touch point when you first start exploring, but the visit and meeting people is the chunk. And then you come back to that profile. Then you come back to job prospects, pay. You've been in that work environment. You've smelt the smells. You've seen what people wear for uniforms or carry for tools. You bring now some knowledge about yourself back to the search. So yeah, I think it's a key component to any job search.
It's funny you've mentioned the smell. I was touring one of the post-secondary institutions in Kamloops, and they were showing us different shops and different skilled trades programs, and each shop smelled differently. And some smells I really enjoyed, like wood shop was just amazing. And then some other ones you're like, oh yeah, I'm not quite sure about this one. If I could do this every day.
Yeah, I stole that from a gentleman, Ben Haber, over at Camosun. We bring 1,600 grade eights up to Camosun to tour. So a nice little kind of hour-long tour of a few different departments. But when he speaks to his groups, he talks about pay attention to how it sounds and what it smells like, because that would be not only where you'd be training, but that would be your work environment. So I just thought that was genius. I think the environment you work in is as important as the job you do. If you're not comfortable there, it's probably not the right fit.
Interesting. Working with such young generation, Bonnie, what stands out? What kind of career aspirations do they have? What are they thinking about?
You know, I think they're pretty confused right now. I think in a lot of ways they've been told they can do anything for so long that it feels pretty overwhelming, and there's thousands of jobs. So to be told you can kind of put your mind to something, you can do anything is a bit problematic. Their lifestyle is going to be different than ours. Their job pathways, we really don't understand what the job market's going to be like. It's changing from last year to this year. AI, it's changed dramatically. Who has a job? Who's safe in their job? What's the next step if you're not safe in your job? If your job is now AI-able, what's next? How do you upskill? So I talk to kids a lot about, it's not a traditional degree pathway many of you will take. It's going to be a series of micro credentials and upskilling. Your whole career will be about some form of training or post-secondary. So I think even our education is changing, knowing how quickly students are going to need to adapt and to learn to be in new work environments that haven't existed in the past. So as teachers, we can't prepare them for that. And as parents, we can't prepare them for that, but we can prepare them to be adaptable. We can prepare them to have confidence, to be able to make changes on the fly, to work well with others and be mentored so that you can move to next steps, not be barriered from moving in a certain direction that may actually be a better fit for you and there are jobs in. So I think people are worried for this generation for a lot of different reasons, but I think we just have to help them hone what's going on for them and what positive steps are their next steps. They're going to be, for some, working. For others, it'll be going directly into post-secondary. So we need to help them and guide them through that transition.
Bonnie, you've been working with librarians quite a bit as well, as far as I know. Could you give us a bit of a insight of how does that work is connected to career education?
Yeah, sometimes in your work, things really surprise you. And sometimes you meet people that just really ally with the type of work you do. We're unique as well that we have teacher librarians in our schools. And a teacher librarian is quite different than just a librarian. They're collaborators. They are working with classes of students. For some of them, they see all the students in the school at some point. So they've had time to work on projects. And it all came about by me wanting to create maker centers in all of our elementary and middle schools. I saw it working in some of the schools and how those teacher librarians were bringing learning alive through hands-on opportunities, technology. So our department created a Maker Center grant, originally with a $2,000 grant to get a Maker Center created in each school. And the Maker Centers were non-consumables. So not paper, not things that are going to end up in recycling or garbage. They were podcast microphones, green screens, Lego, Connects. There's lots of coding games and things that kids can use. So the idea is that these are resources that will last the test of time. They're really intended for students to show their knowledge in different ways. So you might have a theme or a question, but you will have stations with different ways for those students to show their learning. So for some, it's creating a little cartoon online and some sort of technology that they're using, an app. For others, it'll be building with Lego and they're building some sort of structure that's solving a problem. For others, it is hands-on. It is writing and drawing and that. It's intended to be for all students, but giving them an opportunity to try different things, but then seeing where they lean towards. What are those things that are really resonating with them? So from the Maker Center, it was a really great lead in from hands-on learning, ADST, to talking about careers in their future. So talking about strengths, finding the things the students really enjoy doing and how they like to show their learning is such a good segue into looking at their futures and who they are rather than what their output is. And then what evolved was just this wonderful relationship with our teacher librarians from elementary and middle. So making sure I send money their way to continue to grow their maker centers. There's a lot of autonomy in their maker center. They make it with the materials that they identify with and want to work with. The criteria really is only and again, the career education lens just kind of lended itself. So now I'm sending career resources to our librarians. They see all the students at some point and are doing these activities there. So teachers are stressed. They have a lot of curriculum to cover. Teacher librarians have a lot of autonomy and they have a lot of freedom. So they get the why. They understand that how important this work is, and they take a lot of pride in bringing this learning to their libraries. So their learning commons. It's been great. They really are my connection now to the elementary and middle schools. They've been incredible.
Bonnie, when it comes to career resources and helping with the curriculum, have you worked with other provinces and other school districts? Have you worked with other countries to share our career education resources?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've shared some of my resources in Australia and the UK. Again, we agree on the big picture thinking around career education in the early years. It's just then translating that into resources that students have activities to do. Again, there's purpose behind the work that they're doing. And yes, others share their data and research with us. We've got some incredible relationships with an organization, Education and Employers out of the UK. Not only do they do really good quality research on career education in the early years, they have some amazing programs that are inspired by the research and led by the data. And for us and for many career educators, we didn't have a lot of data in the early years. And now we do. So now we know what to do and the impact it's having. So it's something that all of us are kind of learning together, all educators around the world that are career educators. We're working together to ensure that there's really good quality, purposeful career education as early as possible.
And I will make sure to link all the resources that Bonnie has kindly shared with me. So please check out the show notes and visit her website and see what kind of resources are available if you're interested. Bonnie, was there a moment, or were there moments, there are probably so many, in your career that were just true highlights that you said, this is why I do this. This is why it's important?
Yeah, actually, I had one yesterday. We have a student that I've met actually when she was doing the grade 8 Camosun tour. She's in grade 12 now. And she's one of these young ladies that super curious, asked me so many questions on the tour, very mature, but comes from a home with a lot of challenges and has actually even spent time without a home. So she's really struggled with finding a solid base after school hours. Throughout the last few years, I bumped into her. She volunteers for every event. We have a STEM event and she's there letting people in through the door. We had a Futures and Justice event, and she was there for the Future and Justice event. So I get to see her again. And she's excited to share what she's been doing. You know, she has incredible career educators at her school, bringing her to these events, tapping her shoulder and saying, you need to come to this event with me. I'm taking you with me. You need to go see this. Setting up work placements for her in an electrical company. So she's looking at law, she's looking at electrical. She's just super curious. And when I see her face brighten up when she's doing these things and the confidence she has well beyond her, you know, difficult life experiences, I keep going back to what she was like in grade 8 and I see her now and I think all of these interventions, all of these supports in school while she was school aged has led her to the confidence and this kind of agency that she has, and you can feel it. And it just like really, I'm going to really, that's why we do the work. You know, we want kids like her that have just everything running against them to have this blanket around them of people that recognize how hard it is for her. That's pretty special.
Funny. And I'm sure there's so many girls and boys and people like this who don't have that support system at home for whatever reason, or have barriers accessing the information, the resources. So right now when people are struggling financially and mentally, it's important more than ever to have
Uh-huh.
other adults in their life to support them, and just different people surround them so they can see, hey, this is possible and I can do this.
Yeah. I mean, that's when you come home at the end of the day and go, okay, this is absolutely why we're doing this work. We have kids that are exposed to lots of jobs, parents that are very happy, love their jobs. You know, I always say the conversations at the dinner table in that household is very different from one where parents either aren't involved or, you know, they're not sitting down talking about the future and talking about education. When they're with us, I always say I always think of them as our kids. When they're with us, that's the opportunity to intervene and to support. Once they leave our school system, there's really, out they go and there's nothing there for them. So, you know, our department and our staff take a lot of pride in getting them set up and making sure, you know, as much as possible is going to ensure their success in the future. So that's the best part of our job.
I can see why you wanted to go into this profession, Bonnie. It's certainly so meaningful. And having worked with schools in British Columbia, I can see how much teachers care, how much they hold your hand and support you and guide you. So when a young person is ready to graduate and they leave, they can get around navigating this complex system that some of the adults cannot navigate until they're much, much older.
Yeah, I mean, even just, you know, scholarships and applications for post-secondary, you're really setting the stage for them, you know, to make a nice smooth transition to the next steps. So yeah, it's important work.
Is there something that we haven't talked about today, but is really important for you, Bonnie?
I think the one thing actually I was thinking about today was advice to parents, because I have to say that's been a huge um, uptick in parents being really concerned about their kids' future, paralyzed in some ways, panicky. So I like to kind of assure parents that their student is developing in their own time. It's their own time frame. And to be worried about maybe your student when they're 11 years old, maybe doesn't need to be quite so evocative. Like you could step back and go, they may not be able to do this now, but they're not yet, but there's time for them to grow and to learn new things. What I've learned from my son is that school was awful for him. I didn't even think he was going to graduate, really honestly, but he did get through. He's in a program now he cares about. So he went from a C student now to an A student. So I say to parents too, school isn't for everybody. And the subjects they're choosing are very narrow and very siloed. So for many, it's not engaging. There's no motivation. So we don't do things we're not motivated towards. It doesn't mean your student is going to stay unmotivated the rest of their life. It just means at this point in their lives, this is what their experience is. So to relax a little, to let them have a little room to breathe, to acknowledge that we see that this is not your jam. We see this, we see you, we hear you, but you've got a long life ahead. So I think for parents to kind of step back, to give themselves a bit of, you know, break. I think a lot of them think it's their job to intervene at all points and to be really concerned if something's not looking, you know, normal. So I would love for parents to just sit back, relax a little bit, take a breath, let their students make some decisions that, they didn't love the idea, that it didn't work out for them. That's okay. But framing everything in terms of success is academic success at this moment in the time for them is really stressful for students. And I think a lot of the anxiety can stem from that, actually.
You're speaking directly to me right now as a parent of an 11-year-old for whom school is challenging and he can't sit still. I remind myself to step back all the time. There's so many examples of successful people who were not great at school or, went into a completely different direction. It does take time for people to develop and understand what they're good at and what they like. So I'm stepping back, reminding myself every day it's going to be okay.
Well, it's a scary world. I was there. My son's 24. I worried and worried. So many nights I spent worrying about his future. But that's the one message I really want others to hear is that they have a long life ahead of them and it's not a race. There's no finish line. So maybe we just let kids be kids and explore, to have a break once in a while from learning and from always performing. I love quiet time for kids. I love kids that are bored. I think boredom is the biggest underrated thing we can do for our kids. So yeah, I would love parents to feel, yes, you're doing a great job, but you're just going to have to let them do this in their own way and in their own time.
Boredom is underrated.
Yeah.
Bonnie, I've also seen it as, someone who's working with the skilled trades professions. I've seen students completely transform when they get out of that classroom, sit down kind of environment into hands-on learning. So again, it shows that sometimes you just need to find the right environment and kind of try different things and fail and not like things. Not liking something means that, hey, this is just one other thing I can check off the list and not do this.
Yeah, especially the skilled trades. I mean, those students, many of them have really struggled with sitting in desks. They're not solving things, they're not tinkering, they're not doing things. So my worry always that we lose them before we find them and help redirect that energy and that talent of theirs. But you're right, Julia. I mean, you see them from grade 11, moving them to dual credit trades program. They'll come back though a year or two after to say hello and let you know how they are. The change is it's unmeasurable. I mean, you look at it and go, okay, we went from this student everyone was worried about, teachers, counselors, parents, to them being, professionals in their own right and trained and confident. I think in our jobs, really, I think when we see that, we have a lot of faith in the way that we're working with students. That transformation can happen at any point when given an opportunity. So it's pretty exciting. Best part of our jobs, I would say.
Well, thank you so much, Bonnie, for all your wisdom and for all your work and knowledge sharing. I really wish more and more schools had career education in earlier grades. I know it's not always possible, and there's so many barriers to bring career education to schools, but I'm really hoping that more of Canadian schools and schools around the world will implement this extremely important field into schools because young generations make career decisions earlier and earlier.
Yeah, they really do. They say age 7, they're already making assumptions about their suitability to work. That's a stat from Education and Employers. I mean, that's why I developed the resources because people were asking, like, how are you practically bringing career education to a classroom? So to give a guidebook to a teacher with worksheets and for work for kids to be doing and exploring, I think is one way kind of I hope to share what's working here in our part of the world.
For people who want to connect with you, Bonnie, what's the best place to find you?
I'm a bit of a LinkedIn junkie, so love for you to send me a note in LinkedIn. I talk to people all over the world. We share what's working and the things that really we want to let others know that we do and we love. So please feel free to reach out. If you're not a LinkedIn person, I don't know.
Instagram, website?
Instagram. Yes, yes. You can check me out on my Instagram. So Career Education Influencer. Love again for you to touch base. Again, I love speaking to people doing different jobs and different facets of our work. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
And I'll include all the links so it's easy for you to find Bonnie. Again, thank you so much, Bonnie, and I hope you have a wonderful day and chat soon.
Thanks, Julia.